celebrating the power of possibility.
I'm Tammy White, and I believe anything is possible.
Welcome to Anything is Possible. These are great stories about great people whose lives prove that anything is possible. This is one of the first interviews that I've done where my guest is a dear friend, and she really, you don't want to be in the center of attention and in front of the camera. I had to pull teeth to get this incredible woman to sit here and have a conversation about possibility. But Tammy White, President and CEO of Leadership Knoxville, thank you for being here.
Thank you, I think. I was getting ready this morning thinking, why did I say yes to this? I mean, you're a hard person to say no to. Let's just get that fact out there.
So let's talk about yes, because that really is, you have this servant's heart. When you look at the networks of people that you're connected to, right? I've seen a lot of people that are drawn into those networks and they develop a whole lot of ego. I mean, it becomes its whole thing. It makes its own gravy. And one of the things I've really admired about you is your ability to keep the main thing, and just to be of service. I know of all the people you connect and the way you make things happen, and you never want the credit. You're like, no, don't. So I want to talk about that servant's heart. Where does that come from? You were born in South Carolina.
Yes.
So what was it like growing up in South Carolina?
Wow, it was wonderful, honestly. I grew up in a very small town. My parents—
What town?
Walhalla.
What?
Yeah, Walhalla. My friends and I say we holla at ya, but yeah, Walhalla, it's a very small German town. Walhalla would mean Garden of the Gods, and so have a fun Oktoberfest event every year. But honestly, the population when I was growing up there was just shy of 4,000, and today the population's like 4,072. So it hasn't grown very much, and a lot of the young people I grew up with, there's very few of us still there just because there's not a lot to do there. But gosh, if I could ever figure out, how to get back there and make a living, I would have done it a long time ago. But it's a quaint town. And, we had 2 elementary schools and 1 middle school and 1 high school. So by the time you got to middle school, you really knew everybody your age. You knew every grade, you knew their siblings. And it was a time when we didn't lock our doors growing up, and we played outside until it was dark, and it was just sweet and very innocent. And I really miss that, kids today don't have that kind of upbringing.
I met your mom. Yeah, that's the reaction, right? That's the smile.
Yes.
is the reaction. And all of a sudden I got it. I was like, wow, you had to have the most incredible upbringing because, man, your parents, they love. Tammy, you have siblings?
No, it's just me. So my dad is the oldest of 10, and my mother was the second of 7. And they grew up in a small town in western North Carolina called Cashers. A lot of people would pronounce it Cashiers, but it's truly Cashers, North Carolina. And so when they got married, they just moved down the mountain to the big city of Walhalla. And but my dad, he worked at a very young age. I mean, he had a very hard life growing up. Being the oldest of 10, he had a dad who was an alcoholic who was not around a lot. And, so he helped provide and put food on the table and sacrificed a lot to help bring up his younger siblings. And then my mother grew up on a farm and worked hard, and she was the oldest female, the second of 7, but the oldest female in the family. And so she was, preparing meals and taking care of her siblings. And so when they got married, they decided we're just having one. And, I'm grateful for that, but I do regret, that I don't have siblings. In many ways, I wish I did, but I did have an aunt and an uncle when I was growing up, live with us for a little while. So my parents were very selfless in that regard, and now I think about that, and I have one of my cousin's daughters is living with me right now, and it's easier for me to just call her my niece, and she and my daughter are very close, and so I'm thankful, but I think I learned that hard and that kind of sacrifice from my parents.
From being with them.
Absolutely.
What were your aspirations as a young girl?
Oh, you're gonna laugh. At first, I thought I wanted to be an architect, and I remember visiting Clemson University, which was like 15 miles down the road. Great school, but realizing as an only child it was way too close to home for me, and so I had to choose something different. And so I decided I wanted to be a radio DJ.
Oh,
believe it or not,
wow.
yes, I used to like help DJ dances after high school football games, and had a great record collection, and that was my thing. And I'll go to the University of South Carolina and start out in journalism, thinking I'm going to pursue a career in radio. And I remember going to a career fair that freshman year, and I met these two guys from radio, and they were like, "Get out! Don't do it." They're like, and they were saying, it's going to become computerized. There's not going to be a lot of money in this. You need to, rethink having a career in this. And I thought, wow, this is a career fair, and you're discouraging me. And so I decided at that point I would change my my major, and I changed to business, to marketing, and anyways, I don't regret that at all. But I learned a lot and had a great time in college, and I've had a varied career, and so I don't regret any of that.
Possibility powered by Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel.
Now you can listen while you're on the go with Anything is Possible, the podcast. I was thinking, I've known you over 30 years.
I know.
When I first met you, and you clarify my memory for me, I think you were organizing events for the Young Republicans?
I was. Don't hold that against me, but yes. Yes, and I remember all I knew was I listened to talk radio, okay? And I loved listening to your show, and I'm like, this is the guy. And I had never met you, and so I don't know if I even had an appointment, but maybe I called you first, but I came and met you in your office and convinced you to come and moderate some, we had a panel of U.S. senators that were running for the U.S. Senate in 1994, and you came and moderated the panel, and we started a friendship back then.
Back then.
Yeah.
So how do you end up in this leadership space? And your life has been varied and different and difficult in some spaces.
Yeah.
But I've always loved your heart,
Thank
right?
you.
You just never came off as fake.
I appreciate that.
Which is really cool. You were like a real person wanting to make real connections. How'd you end up in this leadership space?
It's interesting that you asked that. I mean, I was always involved in student government from middle school into high school, and my senior year I was student body president, and I remember creating some service projects for us to give back to the community when I was in that space. But always looking for opportunities to help people and to make things better than what they are currently. And so that's really kind of been, I think, a seed that God planted with me. And I say this and I mean it. I mean, I have a lot of ideas that happen and things that I've been able to do in my life, but I don't think Tammy White is smart enough to do those on her own, that God gives me those ideas. He plants the seeds with me, and he gives me that vision. And then when I say yes, I want to be the office of yes, that he helps me execute and to implement whatever that is.
Well, we have a great buddy and friend and mentor. His name is Big Jim Haslam.
Adore him.
I love that man. He's my guy. I remember I was in the Leadership Knoxville class of 1996. This was during a time when they still had gatekeepers.
Yes.
I get a phone call from Big Jim Haslam, and he says, I need you to come by my office. He said, we want to make you the gatekeeper of this class, and here's what this is going to require of you. And blah, 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 and I agree, and we have a good year. And I remember I spoke at the graduation of the class that year. Leadership Knoxville was a transformative experience in my life. I mean, it changed everything. I didn't realize at the time that that was part of a larger positive conspiracy. James A. Dick, Big Jim
Yes.
Haslam, Jim Clayton, and there were many others in this community that were like, hey, he might have something. He was putting a stamp on me at this point. I know he did the same thing for you.
Yes.
Talk about Big Jim and them making the selection to have you lead Leadership Knoxville.
Well, I think there were a couple other people involved in that, and it's completely a God thing how it happened. I had originally applied for a different position at Leadership Knoxville, and it was at a time that I was going through a divorce, and I ended up getting offered that position and had to decline it because it was literally paying $25,000 less than I was currently making, and I was just not in a position to take that kind of hit. And long story short, the prior present CEO, Jeannie Delaney, who was phenomenal.
The great Jeannie Delaney.
I mean, truly, she did the groundwork and the foundation work for Leadership Knoxville. She put Leadership Knoxville on the map.
She did.
Nationally and in this state, and built it to what it was when I came into it, and I credit her for a lot of that because it was the work we do is meaningful, but not everybody has that servant's heart and the desire to put the organization first, and build it to that point. And she did that. But I ended up getting offered this position, and it was, let's just say, it was completely a God thing for me because I didn't expect it. Anyways, I'm grateful for the opportunity, and it doesn't feel like a job. And I'm like, that's the best when your passion for what you love doing is something that you can get paid to do. Then you're never working a day in your life, and you know this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
You have a great passion, and I know your heart, and I know you don't want this to be about you, but the way people talk about you in this community is so awesome. You've made a lot of friends in this community, and leadership matters.
Yes, it does.
What have you learned about leadership?
Well, I've learned, first of all, I think, leadership is an ethical and a moral responsibility. When you realize that you're a leader, you have to show up differently. And I mean, it's a huge opportunity and obligation if you're going to step into the role of a leader. And I've also seen that in cities that are thriving, there's a leadership mentality that they are called to do great things. And so we have this saying at Leadership Knoxville that great cities don't just happen. Great cities happen because of great leaders. And so there's an intentionality in building that leadership. And so part of what we've been doing at Leadership Knoxville is we teach servant leadership. We talk about corporate social responsibility, and we're showing, what are Knoxville's biggest opportunities and challenges, but hopefully helping to connect the dots with where people have passion, but where they also see where they can step in to make a difference. Because not one person or one organization can do everything that needs to be done in community. It takes all of us. And I think that's the biggest opportunity we have is to make sure that people understand that ethical and moral responsibility to step up and ask, if not me, then who? And if not now, then when?
Now, take us with you with Anything is Possible, the podcast. Stream new episodes weekly wherever you get your podcasts.
I know that leading in our community and running a major leadership organization in our community, you've done that as you've gone through personal ups and downs, and you just kept showing up. You have a wonderful daughter. Talk about Courtney.
She is amazing. So Courtney was adopted at birth, and I'm grateful that the birth mom had her and chose her dad and I to be her parents. And the cool part was I was with the birth mom when she went into labor. I took her to the hospital and was in the delivery room and got to cut the cord. And so that was pretty awesome to be able to, to share those experiences with her and be able to talk about her birth parents and what the day was like the day she was born. And so we've had a close relationship, throughout. And of course, it hasn't always been easy. My parents have stepped up a lot to help me. When you run a nonprofit and you have a lot of events to go to that are in the evening, it takes a village. It really does take a village. And so, she's close to both me and her dad. And I'm delighted in the choices that she's made and the life that she's living. And I remind her all the time that she's a reflection, that I hope she makes wise choices because she does reflect both me and her father when she's in the community and whatever she's doing.
I really love and appreciate you for what you bring to our community, what you give to our community. Does success have a recipe?
Hard work.
That's it, isn't it?
It's hard work. And I think also, having, here's the thing. We're always going to be thrown curveballs. And I think we can always have blind spots too. And so having an awareness and listening to other people, being open to ideas and, being open to change. I always thought, I hate change. And I've realized when I look back on my career, my time at Leadership Knoxville, I'm like, we've had a lot of change. Maybe I'm okay with taking risk. I didn't think I was a risk taker, but I think really in hindsight, I have been. But I think I've just had a trust with my faith and in God that, that He'll lead me and I will follow and we'll deliver what needs to be done.
Before we get away, I want to take just a minute or two to talk about the neighboring project. You have been leading us into a new level of connection as a community. When you brought that tic-tac-toe board out and said, wait a minute, I was like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Talk about neighboring.
So I've been convicted about neighboring, honestly, and part of that happened for me. It was around 2018. I had a neighbor who I was friends with. We always talked outside. He lived directly across the street from me on a cul-de-sac, and he was a very sweet man. He was widowed and retired minister. And it was when he died, he got sick and he died, that I found out that he had marched in Selma. And I really, at that point, realized I did not know him as well as I thought I did because I didn't know that story. I had not learned his stories. And quite frankly, I sat back and thought, I don't want to live like this. I mean, I want to be invested in the people around me. I want them to feel safe with me and to be able to call on me. But I also, it's reciprocal, right? Like if I ever need them, I want to be able to call on them. And so I was given that book by Grant Standifer, and he had challenged me to read it and tell me it was very transformative, and indeed it was. And it just sat with me for a long time. I kept thinking, okay, I had this desire or this seed that had been planted that I need to do something with this. And I literally thought, this is bigger than me. And one of our former LK grads reached out to me in 2023 and said, you need to meet this guy, Mark Nelson at Johnson University. And so we met for coffee and we were just hitting it off. We're having great conversation. And something told me I need to bring up this book. And so I asked him if he had read the book, The Art of Neighbor. And he's like, yeah, I love the book. And in fact, I'm friends with one of the authors. And I'm like, get out of here. And I tell him, I said, I have been feeling like I'm supposed to do something with this, but it's way bigger than me. Could you introduce me? And he did. And kind of the rest is history. I mean, Dave started doing Zoom calls with me and Mark, and we talked about him coming to Knoxville, and his daughter was going to be playing soccer at the University of Tennessee in that fall, and so he was going to be coming to Knoxville for the next 4 years. And so it just kind of grew from there, and we did an initial meeting with about 55 community leaders, a lot of them faith-based leaders, nonprofit leaders, some government leaders, and they came and heard Dave, and the feedback was phenomenal. And then from that, I had a couple of board members from the Trinity Foundation who were having a board retreat a few weeks later, talking about what do we need to be leaning into to fund in our community. And one of them mentioned this neighboring meeting that they had just attended with Leadership Knoxville, and everybody kind of leaned in and said, tell us more. And then they called me and I started meeting with them, and long and behold, that led to us getting a grant, some seed money to launch a neighboring campaign for Knoxville. And so we were able to do that. You were our MC.
It was a great event.
Yeah, I mean, the initial day was planned for the day that Hurricane Helene hit East Tennessee. So we had moved the date out to Monday because we saw the terrible forecast. But because we had leftover food from our event on Monday with the people who, about 250 people who couldn't attend on Monday that were supposed to be there on Friday, we were able to send that food to a shelter in Newport to feed people who had been displaced. So again, I mean, grace and all of that, right? Like, we couldn't have orchestrated it any better. And I felt like the movement is starting, and we're not stopping there. I mean, we're talking about neighboring now across our programs. We're going to continue doing that. We've got the Big Table event scheduled again for this fall, close to the National Good Neighbor Day of September 27th every year. So on September 25th, we'll ask people all over Knoxville to sign up to host a Big Table. And we're going to challenge them to do the neighboring event, and to challenge everybody that comes to their Big Table event to go back and do the neighboring event. And you know, if it's just little moments like that where we can change how people live in community, can we have a ripple effect? Can we make sure, you know, we talk about Knoxville being this friendly, great place.
How do we ensure that?
How do we ensure that? Let's never take it for granted.
Yeah,
I think we have to be intentional.
Well, I think that's great. I think you're great. Your homework assignment to determine two things. One, who's going to play you in the movie about your life?
Oh, goodness.
Two, where do you want your statue?
You're too funny. You're so funny.
You are the best. Tammy White.
I adore you, Hal. Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us on Anything is Possible.
Thank you.